Welcome to this week's Weekly Roundup. This week we found out why we have to add fertiliser to soil, because when we take a crop out, it removes some nutrients in the soil and that's got to be replaced. We also found out a wee bit about herbicides and how they can kill plants that would compete with our crops, and pesticides which would keep down the number of insects, but there's a downside because they might kill the bees. We found out about natural nutrient cycles like the nitrogen cycle, where nitrogen goes around in a circle, so it comes from the air. Bacteria can take it from the air, turn it into nitrates in the soil. Plants can take those up in their roots, and then animals can eat the plants, and that's where we get the nitrogen that makes proteins. Eventually, those nitrates are going to go back to the soil because number ones and number twos, and plants and animals will die, and decomposers like bacteria and fungi will break them down and the nitrates go back into soil. Now sometimes they can get cycled back right again into another plant and then maybe into another animal. Other times what happens is denitrifying bacteria let the nitrogen go back out into the atmosphere and it turns back into gaseous nitrogen. And then we did a wee bit about genetically modified crops and how they could be useful, and genetic modification can allow us to make things like insulin more easily than we could in the past. But some people are worried about genetically modified crops because they fear that things like genes from GM crops might be able to move into other plants and make them herbicide resistant. It's never actually happened, and we don't have any evidence that I know of where GM crops have harmed humans. But people are still nervous about them. And that was this week's Weekly Roundup.